Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Maria Gonzalez podcast. I'm your host, Maria, and today we have a special guest. We have Sandi Serling. Did I say that correctly, your last name?
You you absolutely did. Most people say sterling
I
because they
almost did
think
that.
there's a T in it. And I just say sterling without the T.
I almost did this.
Also,
Okay,
I
so
say Rod Serling because he's a relative of mine, and people seem to know Twilight Zone and Rod Serling. So,
oh, nice. Oh, I like that. So I'm just going to let people know a little bit about you. So Sandi's journey began with anxiety and fear, later realizing her intuitive and mediumistic abilities were deeply connected to sensing the energy of others. After a 30-year successful career in public relations and marketing, the profound loss of both of her parents just months apart, she was guided into an exploration of neuroscience and metaphysical practices that transformed her life. This transformation led her to the creation of Activating Happy, an acclaimed conference bringing together neuroscience and metaphysical wisdom, and later the powerful podcast Fear Unzipped, a project Sandi says came through her, not from her. With honesty, humor, and deep compassion, she explores fear, anxiety, and the truth that we are far more powerful than we've been taught to believe, which is so true. So I want to share with our
true.
listeners and our guests how we ended up connecting. And it was
Yeah.
all because our dad's in spirit. Who knew? I saw a post that somebody liked that was yours. And then I saw a hat, like a fedora hat you were wearing. And my dad, he had the exact same hat. And I still have it in my possession. And I reached out to you, not having any clue, nothing about you. And I messaged you and I was like, you need to be a guest on my podcast. I don't know why, you just need to. And then later I went and researched you. But first I asked, and you said yes. So I'm so grateful that you are here. So I feel like our dads, our loved ones in spirit, like this was
Mm.
such a spirit led connection. Yeah.
100%, Maria. Thank you so much for having me. It is such an honor to be here. I was getting chills when you were telling that story, and I can feel my dad right here with a big smile wearing his hat. I can, he's absolutely here. He's here a lot. Beautiful man. Your dad's a beautiful man. And it's the wink from the universe. They brought us together. There's no question about it because you had no idea who I was.
I will say this. This is the first time I've ever went and just reached out to someone and said, I need you to be on my podcast. I didn't
Oh.
even look to see anything about you. I didn't know a website. I didn't look at your Instagram bio. I just saw the picture and I was like, I gotta have her on. And I think that's what it means to lead a spirit-led life, following your heart, the nudges.
100%. So I read energy with the guests on my show, I will only bring in people that I feel are of a frequency of love or higher, that they have beautiful energy. And the minute I saw you and you sent me that message, I went, oh my gosh, she's got gorgeous energy. And we have a mutual friend, Marta the Media.
Yes.
And I said, oh, Maria, she contacted me. She's beautiful.
Thank
And
you.
Marta, of course, agreed. And here we are. And it's such a privilege. I love being here with you.
Oh, I love that you said yes to being here because, like your podcast, and because I also do this with my podcast, getting rid of the fear. Because I know in the
Hmm.
beginning of my mediumship journey, I was scared of it. I was so afraid. So, can you tell us about the beginning of your journey into like opening up your intuition and mediumship? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Again, I'm getting chills. As a little child, I could feel the anxiety in my mom's womb. My mom was a wonderful person, but she was raising, three little kids. It was going to be the third kid. And my father was in law school late at night, and then he was working during the day. She was really busy. So I'm sure she was anxious. I could feel it. And when it came out, I was riddled with anxiety. I was the most fearful child. Spending the night at a friend's house it was a terrifying concept because I thought I'm going to wake up and my family's going to be gone. Thought they're going to disappear. They're going to leave me. Um, and so I lived with a lot of anxiety. and I had no idea what it was. But I remember adults talking to me, like a little kid, 5, 6-year-old, an adult talking to me. And in my mind, I'd say, not this sophisticated, but I would say, they're not telling me the truth. That's not what I'm picking up from them. But they were talking, they're the adult. Of course, they know. Therefore, what's wrong with me? I don't understand. So I went through life like that. I went through till I was in my, I'd say 50, until I was about 50, going through enormous anxiety, waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
And it's just actually it was later that I was older than that. I was probably 58 or something. Anyway, then somewhere along the line, but I always had kind of an intuitive ability.
Yeah.
And I had a PR company for 30 years, worked in the entertainment industry, had no training in that, but it just came very naturally because I could read my client. My clients, I could read them, know what they wanted. It was just, I never thought about it, but it was kind of magical. And I had beautiful clients. And then there was one year where my parents passed away 4 months apart. They were older, but they died 4 months apart. And that's when, and somebody said, "Oh, now you're an orphan." And I went, "Oh, that's just so odd," because I was so close to them. And then I started saying, "Okay, I'm really sad. I'm really depressed. I have a beautiful family myself, husband, children, but I was so sad at that loss." So I thought, I need to learn how my brain works because there's a way that I can learn how to feel happy again. Also, the day after my dad passed, I'm driving to the grocery store and he's sitting next to me in the car. Now it's a knowing. It's not that I physically saw him, but you understand that. It
Yeah.
was a knowing, his smile, his laugh. And I went, "Dad, what are you doing here?" And he laughed. It was that laugh. And he was basically saying, "I'm never leaving you." Oh, I have chills
Yeah.
again. "I'm never leaving you." So then I did a deep dive into neuroscience. I found a guy who was a neuroscientist. I said, "Look, if you teach me what you know, I'll do your PR for you."
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And I learned so much. And you know what happened, Maria?
Yeah.
My metaphysical side, my intuition, my psychic abilities, my mediumship skyrocketed. It just started coming out of me. And at that point, I wasn't scared of it. And I was opening up to letting people know that I had these abilities. But I
Yeah.
can tell you, if I thought about doing my podcast maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I wouldn't have done it. I would have been too scared.
Me too.
Yeah. And so now that because people can be cruel and,
Agreed.
say very cruel things to you. And now I have no fear around it because I know it to be my truth. I know I'm talking to loved ones. I know I'm talking to beings. I know that the rocks are talking to me. I know the trees are talking to me.
Yeah.
I can pick up on things. So it just feels very normal to me. And
Yeah.
I'm happy to share. And I say to people, if this doesn't resonate with you, if you listen to my podcast, it doesn't resonate, then it's not for you. So,
Yeah.
switch to another podcast.
And that's okay.
100%. We're not all meant for everybody. That's for
That is so,
sure.
that is so true. I do remember for myself in the beginning, like you, I was horrified. I was like, just because of my journey in the beginning, there was so much fear. And then you don't know what
Yeah.
you don't know. And then I just met more people that bred more fear and took more
Mm.
advantage with zero ethics and integrity. And then I wished when I created my podcast, I was like, oh, I wish there was something like this like 25, 30 years ago, because I don't think anything like that
Oh,
existed. So I'm so grateful for people like you and other people that are out there on social media, speaking the truth, being authentic with no fear, because I think that's so important. And
yeah.
how did you go from so much fear to like so confident? Like, how long did that take?
Well, confidence. I am not 100%. I'm a work in progress, but I am 1,000% more confident today than I was back in the day. Um, it was when I learned how the brain works and that we can rewire our brain about neuroplasticity and that it doesn't matter how old you are, you can still change patterns. You can change traumatic patterns. You can rewire it and create new neural pathways. I mean, this is science and this is reality. So I
Yeah.
started doing that instead of telling myself stories of what was going to happen, stories that were fiction. Somebody
Yeah.
once said, Sandy, you're putting too much real estate in emotional real estate into making up a story that hasn't come to fruition. Once you know that the story is real, then work with it. But I go, I'd meet somebody and go, oh my God, they didn't like me, or this is going to happen, or that's going to happen. It was complete fiction.
Yeah.
But it was what happened was it was wires getting crossed between my empathic abilities, my insecurities, and picking up on their insecurities, and it was a mush of tanglement. So
Oh,
when I
wow.
learned how to untangle,
Yeah.
and that's the best way because I see all of us as a shiny, shiny diamond. We all come in fully loaded. We all have these abilities. Nobody is more special with their abilities, but that diamond is wrapped up. And so we need to slowly unravel it so the
Hmm.
diamond can shine again. And that's what your podcast does. That's what I hope my podcast does, is to kind of start taking the wrapping off that shiny diamond in yourself. And
Yeah.
and and your abilities are going to come through loud and clear. And it certainly happened the way my podcast came to fruition because it was ridiculous. It was so guided.
Can you tell us like what happened? Like, did you just wake up one day, get a download, and you're like, I have to do this? Like, how did that happen?
It was, to me, it was nuts because I had no thoughts of doing a podcast. I didn't know how to do a podcast. I didn't even know how to do the Zoom links, the Zoom to reach out to somebody and provide a Zoom link. That terrified me, terrified
Yeah.
me. Um, I lived part of the time in California, and I was walking the mountains, the beautiful mountains there in California, and that's where all this information started coming into me. My guides introduced themselves, and I'm walking, and I hear this voice very loud and clear saying, "You're going to be doing a podcast." And I remember saying, "No, I'm not." And then they said, and it's going to be called Fear Unzipped. I said, oh my God, no, that's so scary. Why would I put fear in the title of a podcast? Absolutely not. I'm fighting with my guides. And they're laughing. They said, no, you're going to do it because what's going to happen is you're going to transmute fear. Fear is just a word, just like potato chip is a word.
Yeah.
Fear is a word. You're going to transmute it. You're going to heal yourself, your guest, and the listeners and viewers. You're
Mm.
all going to be together in this bubble of high energy. I said, well, actually, that's not going to happen. Nope, not doing it.
Watch
Next
one.
thing that happened, seriously, I'm on the trail alone. This is the next thing. A woman walks by with this man, and she's wearing a t-shirt that says fear less in huge letters. And I stopped her. I grabbed her by the arm. I said, can I take a photo of your t-shirt? She said, sure. And I actually told her what just happened.
Yeah.
And she could have thought I was a psycho. And she
Hmm.
said, oh my God, that's amazing because I went through the death of a husband and then, a divorce. And I was so fearful. And she's telling me her story.
Yeah.
And I went, maybe there's something to this. So then I went home and I'm in Lee Harris's portal and he
Yeah.
channels, do you know Lee? He channels the Z's. And once a month he does a live channel and people can send in questions. And has about 5,000 people on the call. And I wrote in, well, I want to do a podcast, but I'm terrified because there are a billion of them. For some reason, he chose my question. And the Z's came in and they said, well, you have to do it. You have to do this podcast. There are a billion podcasts out there and people will find you. And I thought,
Yeah.
that's that's wild. Then the next thing that happened, I still didn't quite believe it. I was home in Oregon and I went in my backyard and my guides are talking to me. I said, okay, okay, I'm starting to believe I'm going to do it. I want to find an orange feather and I want to find it today. Well, orange feathers are hard to find. They're just hard. And I get up from my chair and I'm walking. I was guided to walk around this area and down into my yard. And down there is a northern feather, flicker feather from the tail. It's orange.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'm in. I'm in. I said, I'm in. And then it was so hard, finding all the pieces to find the right people to help me. But they
Yeah.
all came in, and I have a magical, magical team that works with me. And the guests, I made a list of the guests that I wanted, and
Yeah.
almost every single guest said yes, and they had no idea who I was.
I like
People,
that.
people like Wendy Kennedy, who's very well known, and there's no reason for her to say yes to me. So
Yeah.
anyway,
I like
that's
that.
what happened.
I like that you did that. What I remember when I first did the podcast, like I wanted to do one, but I was so terrified of being seen and heard. And
Mm,
then I kind of left it to the side. And then the nudge came again, like, I want to do a podcast. And then I saw, because I'm one of those people, I need support. So I was on Instagram and I saw, want to learn how to start your own podcast. I was like, yes, I'm going to sign up for this because you get to be with other women. And I'm really about community. I need that. I need you to hold my hand in the beginning. After that, no more. But in the beginning,
absolutely.
I need to talk to people and just have a safe place where like I don't know what I'm doing. But I remember I did the podcast. So the first few episodes, it was audio only. I was like, no way you're gonna put no way we're going on video. Then my next guests were like, oh, you're doing video? And I was like, yes. I don't know why I said yes. I had no idea during the Zoom thing, I didn't know you can mute yourself if you have a cough attack, because once in a while I have a cough attack. And then I just remember her writing, you can mute yourself, you know? And I was like, I can?
You felt like me.
I'm like, you can do stuff like that. So I have learned, and I know in the beginning I was we're gonna ask these questions. Like I was so nervous, and you got to answer them in order. Like I would prep my guests. They were so, so gracious.
Yeah.
After that, it was like, we're just having a regular coffee chat, and we're gonna wing
Hmm.
it, and we are gonna follow spirit-led conversations that are uplifting. You're gonna share your story. But yeah, like now I'm just like caution to the wind. But in the beginning, like those
Hmm.
training wheels, I was not ready to let go. So I find that interesting.
I know 100% because when I worked in Hollywood, I put people in front of the camera. I was so happy. I was behind the camera. I was so happy that they were in front of the camera and I was small. I was hidden behind. I kept myself small. I was good
Yeah.
at what I did, but I kept myself small. I did not want to be out there. I did not want to be known. And I certainly didn't want my face on camera. Absolutely not. When my podcast came, I thought I'm only doing audio. I did the same thing. And then I heard, no, my son said, no, mom, you have to have YouTube. That's where it's at. You have to. And I went, oh, okay, okay, okay. So I did that. But when I went into it, I thought, if spirit is guiding me through this whole thing, I'm just going to go on camera and I'm going to just trust in this process, which something happens when I go on camera. There is a bubble that's created that it just I'm getting to it just takes over. And
Yes.
so I don't have anything scripted. I never have anything scripted. Another person that said yes immediately to me was Suzanne Giesman, who's become a
Yeah.
very good friend of mine now. And she was another person like, why would you say yes to me? That's not something I'd like to say to the
Yeah.
listeners and viewers is don't think of yourself as small. You're so much powerful than you think you are. And we in our society, we're taught, oh, this person's much better. This person is far more gifted. But I know that every person listening to this right now is here for a reason because they were brought in to
Mhm.
listen, and that you have gifts that nobody else on the planet has, that person. And
Yeah.
so be so proud of them. And I also think a little bit of fear is a really great thing. You make it your companion and it pushes you out the door. It's fear and anxiety. There are some good aspects of it that force you to take a deep breath and take the dive and, jump in a net will appear. I'm a living, breathing story of that. And
Yeah.
I would love for people to feel more powerful because we have a tendency to keep ourselves small.
True. True. I love that you said that because I know for myself in the beginning, it's a thing inside your head, and we do it to ourselves like, oh, I'm going to invite this guest. Oh my God, they have a bigger following. They'll never say yes. And then it would take me like 100 times to get the courage to finally send the email. And then when I meet them, I'd be like, oh my God, they're like me. They're normal.
They're wonderful. I've even had really well-known guests on my podcast where I'll stop and go, okay, I'm getting this message for you. And I can tell you there's no way in a million years I would have done that many, many years ago. But the message is coming in. The message is there for me to give to this person. And it's always, always extremely well received. I have loved ones that come in that have passed that want to give messages to them. And it's just, I know that this is real. I know that this is really the way we're supposed to be living. I had
Yeah.
a physicist on, Thomas Campbell, who's really beloved around the world. He is a full-blown scientist and also he studies consciousness.
Yeah.
And he says that paranormal is the normal. And this is coming from a very, very respected scientist. We come in with all these gifts, but over time, we cover them up, especially by the time we're 7, we've covered all of that up. And then between our parents and our friends and our teachers and whatever, we become, um, kind of manipulated.
Yeah.
So it's time to start taking that off. Let's all take that off and show our shiny diamond.
I love that. I know I've had a guest that grew up with mediumship. I've actually had a few. So I
Mm,
always find that so cool when they grow up with parents that are mediums. So they don't
yeah.
have that experience, but they have a completely different experience, which I think is really cool. And people sharing their stories, which I always find fascinating. And then within this, because you do talk about mediumship, did you get trained in mediumship? Like, how does
Mm-mm.
that work?
I've had zero training in any of this. So I mean, I had a PR firm, and so I was communicating with people a lot, and
Yeah.
so maybe that helped with the interview process because I was interviewing a lot of people in my PR firm. But no, I was not taught anything. But I did gravitate towards people that I thought were really energetically of high intent, and I would
Yeah.
start listening to them. And like Lee Harris or somebody like a Wendy Kennedy channels, or I mean, there are Susan Geisman, who I have so much respect for. I mean,
Yeah.
there are some really beautiful people out there. Mark Anthony, I really like. But no, I was never trained, and that's why, like my husband is very linear. I just kept this. I never said anything, and then I started saying little things. Like a very dear friend of ours passed away, and
Yeah.
I said to my husband one day, "Well, he came to me, and this is what he told me." And my husband didn't, like go. He just said, "Oh, that's interesting," and he listened. So I'm being more brave about, and I'm very brave about it now
Yeah.
within, family members that might have thought that it was nuts, and they're allowed to
Yeah.
think that. He might still think it's nuts, but he doesn't, he lets me. He doesn't show it. He's actually extremely proud of my podcast, which is really, really sweet and kind.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I wasn't. I just, I just opened up the channels.
Yeah.
It's learning the neuroscience because I felt, Maria, that is a solid foundation. It's science, and I can use that to then catapult into the metaphysical side. And that's why I like combining the two. I think it's
Yeah.
really important. I think there's a lot of value in science,
Yeah.
and there's so much value in ancient wisdom.
Yeah.
And bringing those two together, I've had people write me that are psychiatrists that have said, there were two people that said, I am thinking about bringing in my metaphysical side into my practice. And I said, well, then you're going to be ahead of the game because you're grounded in science, and now you're bringing in a higher power.
Yeah.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
So for your background, did you go learn science or were you like I'm not a science person, so were you always a
Oh,
science person growing up?
no, I was an anthropology person. I have a master's in cultural anthropology. And I love primatology and animals. Jane Goodall was a huge influence to me on the cover of
Yeah.
National Geographic with the chimps. I remember
Yeah.
since sixth grade, I thought, I'm going to do that. Um, I love nature. I love being out in nature. I could feel it, but I had no idea I was feeling it.
Yeah.
Um, I loved other cultures, and I love folklore, and I love the way I like people to keep their cultural upbringing with them. I don't like ethnocentricity. I love bringing in cultures and learning about cultures. I was always drawn to American, Native American, indigenous culture.
Yeah.
And when I got my master's, my one of my professors took me to Montana to a private Native American ceremony with all different tribes and me, Caucasian. He was Caucasian, but had been adopted by a Navajo family.
Yeah.
And it was a drum ceremony. They were
Yeah.
passing around peyote, but I was smart enough not to do it because I was already high on the experience of being there.
Yeah.
And the drums and the energy, I started sobbing uncontrollably. So that was a very metaphysical experience that I didn't quite realize, but I was drawn to the energies and the ancestors and the spirits that came out in that
Yeah.
gorgeous ceremony. And I was so honored that they accepted me to be there.
Yeah.
And that was a turning point for me as well. That's when I always sought out psychics. I always sought out mediums. There are a lot that are not good.
True. I've met them. Yes.
And what happened was in the beginning, and I think a lot of listeners are going to relate to this, I hung on every word. You're going to meet
Yeah.
a person named Robert. You're going to da da da. This is going to happen. And I'm waiting, waiting, waiting for that to happen. It's just the worst thing you can do because to me, that's like a stop sign.
Yeah.
And you just take the information in, you listen to it. If it resonates, if you don't get a weird feeling about it, I let it flow through me, let it flow
Yeah.
through, and I don't give it any weight at all. And then if it comes back to me, which I call in breadcrumbs, then I'll go, huh,
Yeah.
that's what that was. I
Yeah.
don't, I don't take any of it super seriously, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Oh, that totally makes sense. In the beginning, I used to hang on every word.
Mhm.
And then for those of you that are listening, just to remind you guys, psychics, mediums, we're human and we make mistakes. We're not perfect. But with that, I remember I used to hang out on every single word. This is going to happen. And then in March, this is going to happen. And I used to think it was true. I
Mm.
would develop anxiety for some of the things they said that I didn't like. And I was like, oh, I don't want that to come true. Oh my God. But these two things came true. Therefore, this is going to come true. So I actually had to stop for a bit, like getting readings because it would bring me such anxiety. Yeah.
Same with me. I stopped for about 8 years. Because one person said something that was it just wasn't good. And I
Yeah.
thought, why do I need to know this? I don't need to know this. And it just colored my life for a
It
while.
does.
And then I learned how to let it go. And I learned tarot during COVID. I was online and Richard Knight had this $47 course and I did it. But the
Yeah.
funny thing about and it was nothing that I ever even thought I would do. And I thought that, well, this is silly.
Yeah.
What I learned from tarot, Maria, is it also opened up my intuitive ability. So it came to me like a fish to water. It was
Yeah.
very, very easy for me, but it gave me putting the cards down in front of me and talking to somebody gave me um, the license to go ahead and tell them what I was seeing. And I could say, use the cards to kind of be the intermediary.
Yeah.
And so it was a beautiful practice. And that also opened up more and more. But I had a few people come to me who were really damaged by a
Mm.
tarot reading.
Yeah.
And we have a reason, and I don't do tarot readings. That is not my role in life. I believe you do that. It's
Yeah.
it's 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 for the people that are have an expertise in it. But we have such a huge responsibility that
We
what
do.
we say, everything that I hear or see is never felt to be really negative. It's a flashlight to guide a person on a path, whether they choose to do it or not. But it's something like I have a lot of people just ask me, I'm dating this guy. Is this a good idea? And I will instantly get some sort of feedback. And
Yes.
I'll say, well, you might want to look out for this. I never say this guy is horrible, but I say you might want to look out like this. And if you're feeling insecure, if he's making you feel a certain way, you just listen to yourself.
Yeah.
But any guidance that I will ever give is going to be from love. And so it will never harm somebody. I'll
Yeah.
never say, oh my God, you did that. That is stupid. I will never,
We do that to
ever
ourselves. We don't need somebody else saying that to
look
us.
at, we do it to ourselves. Why would we? I've really stopped doing that because learning neuroscience and learning how our brain doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy. So if I say to myself, Sandy, you're so stupid, your brain is your best friend, and it says, oh, you're stupid. Okay, well, let me magnetize that and reinforce ways to support that you're stupid. It's not being mean, it's supporting you. So if you
Yeah.
have the choice to say something nice to yourself or to say something negative, I choose to say something nice. And one thing that I say to myself every single day, Maria, I say, Sandy, I'm so proud of you.
Oh, I like that.
And because the fact that I got this podcast off the ground, it's been on a year, the fact that I have these gorgeous guests, the fact that I have this privilege of being on your podcast because of it, the fact that I learned the technology that terrified me,
Yeah.
I say, Sandy, I'm so proud of you. And your soul wants you to be proud of it.
Yeah.
So say you're proud of yourself. It wants that. It delights in it and it applauds you. And I can feel my guides going, yeah,
I like that. One of the things, okay, so you mentioned Richard Knight. I
yeah,
love him. I had him on my podcast. And what I love
yes,
about
as did
him
I.
is he's grounded and down to earth. And I feel like when you do this work, woo woo is fun, but you can't go live over there because we have a human life and we need to be grounded and we need to be responsible for everything that comes out of our mouth. So, yes, I find too, I love tarot. I'm in love with tarot. But during COVID, I actually ended up on a podcast called Clubhouse. And I don't know, did you hear about that app?
Like, no.
Oh, so someone reached out to me. I was like, I don't want to talk. I don't want anybody to know that I do
No.
tarot. And yet I have my students on it doing tarot readings. But one thing I always tell my students, like when I teach, because we forget this and just for daily life is like, I like what you said. I'm so proud of you. I love that. And then also, where were you 6 months ago? Look how far you've come. Look how much. where were you like a month ago or 2 months?
Mm.
Like we forget because we start with today and we start, well, I didn't do this and I didn't do that. But it's like, and I'm only here. But where were you 3 months ago? Where were you 5 years ago? Like, wow, look at your life now. What a blessing.
Mhm.
And then when you switch that to that, wow, you're like, oh my God, look how much I did. And then that gives, I do that to myself all the time because then that gives me the courage to go forward.
Mhm. Isn't it wild? Like a year ago, when think of this was an idea, my thing was just an idea,
Yeah.
and it's now an idea that's come to fruition, and the people that have come in, my team, I just go every day, how did this happen? And then, I kind of look up at my guides, and I'm so appreciative, and it's magical, and it makes life so much more fun. Everything is
Yeah.
so much more fun when you start following the breadcrumbs. And
Yeah.
all of us have accomplished so much. And I also say, if you're going through a grieving or something, we talked a little bit before we came on about a gentleman that was really grieving. And I will say, if you can get out of bed and put 2 feet on the ground and stand up, that's like climbing Mount Everest. Applaud yourself, because it's not the huge things, but that is huge. That is huge. You're grieving, your life is over. You feel like, how am
Yeah.
I going to survive the next day? And you get out of bed and you make yourself a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. That is giant. And so I say celebrate everything, because nothing's too small, truly.
I
And
agree.
Richard Knight, love him. He is such a kind, kind man. And he taught me so much, Maria. And
Yeah.
he gave me confidence, because then I went into his academy, and he gave me confidence. And somebody who can give you confidence and see you is a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I think too, and just a reminder for those that are listening, just like Sandy said, please don't compare yourselves to us or the person next door because that's a dream killer. Just look within your own life. The fact that you got out of bed today is amazing. You took a breath, you felt the cold sheets or the heat or the cold wind or the snow if you're in Canada or sunshine if you're in a different part of the world that has sunshine and just being in that space of gratitude for everything that you have, regardless, big, small. I don't think I'm better than you or you're better than me. Like I think we're all equal. I know we're all equal. Let's
Mhm.
rephrase that. We're all equal. Yeah.
We all have some special gifts, that shine brighter than some
Yeah.
other things. Like, I'm not gonna, be an astronaut. I don't have that gift.
Me neither.
I'm not, it would be cool. It'd be really cool. But yeah, I completely agree with you. And I remember in the beginning of my podcast, I was very fearful about success. Like, what if it was successful? Oh my God, then I'm out there, which I think is a fear a lot of people have, which just sounds funny, but we have a fear of success. And the other thing was, I didn't want people to start thinking I was the expert and come to me and ask me all these questions. I didn't want the responsibility of it. And
Yeah.
because I do not think of myself as any better than anybody else, but I also don't think of anybody else as being better than me.
Yeah.
Yes, they do have talents that are better, but as a human on the planet, I don't I don't see a hierarchy there.
Yeah.
Um, but that's another thing that stops people, is fear of success. Like, oh my
Is it
God, it
is it fear
is.
of success or fear of being seen?
It's both of them.
Yeah.
So that's a really good way of putting it. It's a fear of being seen, then you have a responsibility, right?
Yeah. That's
To
true.
be whatever it is you're putting out there, because a lot of people, they fake it till they make it.
Yeah.
And then you're successful, and let's say you're hugely successful, and a lot of hugely successful people are very, very depressed people.
Yeah.
People that have a lot of money, a lot of they're very depressed, and because they don't know how to balance that, their ego. So I think with me, I don't want the one thing that I said to myself when I was getting into this is, my ego is going to take the back seat.
Yeah.
am not going to have it up front driving. There's just no way.
Yeah.
And I worked in a business that was all about ego. And so in Hollywood. And so that has been at the forefront. My ego, gets bruised a little, or I get nervous, or I look at myself on camera and I go, oh God, that, I mean, I'm very honest about that. But my ego, as far as um, what I have to offer, I think it's
Yeah.
in check.
Yeah.
Anything I put out there, my room, this office, before any conversation, I have sound bowls, I have a chime, I say
Oh, I love that.
something that only frequencies of love or higher can come in. I have a gatekeeper that makes sure that it's of the highest intent. So I want to create a bubble of pure love.
Yeah.
And Tom Campbell, the physicist, said, we're in a learning lab and we are here to learn to love. And I do believe that to be true.
That is true. As you were talking, you were reminding me of my own personal journey. So, as many of you know, I love tarot. I teach tarot. I'm just so in love with it. But for the longest time, I wouldn't tell anybody I was doing
Mm.
tarot. Like, even when I went on Clubhouse and I was interviewed in the New York Times, and I was like, no. And my friend's like, you have to. I'm like, but what the other mediums think, because they're all like,
Um,
"Oh, I don't use a tool. You need a tool." And then I thought, "Oh my God, I'm less than." Until and I think too, uh, it took a lot of inner healing to be like, yeah, I shouldn't be embarrassed that I love tarot. But there was a lot of embarrassment. She pulled out a tarot card. She's less than of a psychic, because that's out there, and it bugged me. And then as I love cards. And the one thing I learned within my doing my podcast, when I interview people, where does all their journey start? Everybody pulled out a deck of tarot to open up their psychic abilities. Almost every interview is like, do you own tarot? Oh yeah, my mom gave it, my aunt, my friends. We were 16. We played around. We opened up our intuition. It's like, there you go. Everybody's been on this journey. But then there's this embarrassment or this less than, I don't know, it's
mm,
weird. And I'm just like, I want to get rid of that. It's just embrace. And I love the artwork.
yeah.
I'm in love with the artwork too.
See, I love the artwork too. And did you say that you were a tarot reader in that article in the New
Yes,
York
yes. I
Times?
was doing readings on Clubhouse with my tarot students. I was teaching online, but I was
Okay.
horrified of what will the other mediums that I thought were better than me think of me. And then those
It's
statements of, well, I don't need cards. You need cards, not me.
oh, it's
Yeah,
interesting. In spirituality, there is a hierarchy, and it's just
there
like
is.
any other thing, any other business or whatever you want to call it. There is a hierarchy, and people have opinions and they judge, and I really, it's so important to me to get into a space of non-judgment
Yes.
and to have discernment. I believe in skepticism. I am a huge believer that come in as a skeptic, come in as a skeptic. And if you still are a skeptic by the time you leave the podcast, whatever, then it's not for you. I think we have to have discernment, because if we believed every single thing we heard, we'd be complete wackadoodles, because there's so much stuff out there. But the fact that you love it, you love tarot, tells me that you're extremely gifted in it, because it's
Yeah.
it's in every cell of your body. And we're not for everybody. And somewhere along the line, we have to say, this is my truth. This is my authenticity. This is who
Yeah.
I am. If you don't like me, and if it's a famous medium that makes a comment, it doesn't matter,
Oh,
because
not anymore.
no, I
But
know.
in the
And so
beginning, yes.
100%. And I know there's so many people listening that are nodding their heads. Oh my God, yes. I got to the point where, with podcasts, there are people that have millions of followers, and I'm going, oh, do I need to worry about that? And I go, absolutely not." My guide said, Sandy, it's not about the numbers. it's about the resonance of it.
Mm,
And if the resonance is there, the people will just find you. And people
yeah.
people have found me. I get messages from people saying, I'm listening to this episode, that episode. And I write back, I can't believe you're listening to my podcast.
I've done that too. Really? You listen to me? Why?
And there's a place for all of us, and that's what I have learned.
I love that. I will say this. In the beginning of my mediumship journey, and because I actually got into healing, like I was a medium and I was trying to avoid, I call me anything, but do not call me a medium in the beginning of my
Mhm.
journey because I was just not ready to embrace that. But I remember as I was meeting mediums and shamans and different teachers within my journey, the teachers that I pulled within my life, they all had this one thing in common that I love. And I still do this to this day with my students. They always said, I'm going to teach you what I learned. Take what resonates, leave what
Mhm.
doesn't. Find your truth in my teachings because not everything's going to resonate with you. And that's okay. And that starts developing that trust like, okay, he said this. Do I agree? Don't I? And it's, and sometimes I wouldn't agree with one of my teachers,
Mhm.
like in-person teachers and that. And this was a shaman. He was such an incredible teacher. But then years later, be like, oh, you know what? What he said now it resonates with me. But in the beginning, it didn't. But he always said, only take what feels right for you. If it does
Mm.
not, leave it. Find your own truth.
Oh, I so believe that, Marie. That's something that with Richard Knight, that's great because he said these are what the cards mean, but you're going to find as you start working with them, they're going to take on some different meanings. And that absolutely happened with me. And I love there are some people that are teachers and mentors that will say, you have to do it this way.
No.
You have to do it my way.
Yeah.
And the minute I would hear something like that, I run and I would offer this to listeners. The minute somebody says, I'm the one who can teach you this and you must do it this way, I'm the only one that can get you where you need to go, run so far in the opposite direction
Yeah.
because that's not true.
Yeah.
And every modality that you learn, you're going to put your own spin on it because you are a unique soul on this planet. So
Yeah.
I really love that you say that to your students and that they can do it their way. And as they should. They should never do it somebody else's way.
And I think those are good words just to take into your life in general as you hear things, as you get a reading, because even in my readings, does it resonate? Like with the psychic
Hmm.
readings,
Hmm.
put it in your heart. Does that feel good when I say, or are you cringy? Because then that also gets them to trust their intuition, because maybe that's the first time someone's asked them to tune into their intuition. And that's empowering. Anything to empower people, because I was so disempowered in the beginning of my journey. I don't know about
Mm.
you. So it's like, it's so important to me to give back the power. It's like, you can do this. It's within you. I almost feel like we're in an episode of The Wizard of Oz where she
Yeah.
clicks her heels.
And also, you open the curtain and it's just this old man who's the wizard. We all have abilities, we think that somebody else is better than we are. In my beginning, it was more my own self saying, "Oh, you're not good enough. You're not good enough." And because I kept it to myself.
Yeah,
Now I very openly talk about it, but I do read the room and I know there are times when you don't say it because what's the point?
true.
Somebody. But what I did find is I had people come out of the woodwork that I didn't know, very linear people that said, "Oh, Sandi, I listened to your podcast and this thing happened to me when I was 5 or this." And I'm going, "You've got to be kidding me." So you've been carrying this intuitive ability inside of you for so long, and now
Yeah.
it's giving them permission to say it. How fantastic is that? I mean, it's really cool.
I think that's interesting. So I am curious, within your own family, like
Mm,
was your mom or your dad intuitive? Do you have
mm.
mediums? Like tell us about that.
No, but my father, who was an attorney and also a spy, I later found out. My father was a very, very learned, he was Jewish, very learned, very scholarly, very uh, practiced Judaism in the way that was very honoring and supported everybody else's religion. He never thought his was the only way. One
Yeah.
day, my dad, and he was in his late 80s at the time, he
Yeah.
came home and he said to my husband and I, he goes, very nonchalantly. And my dad was, I would have said very linear,
Yeah.
beautiful, loving soul, but very linear. Came home, he said, my mom was sitting out with the people today out in the pews. My mom was there and she looked at me and I heard her say, I'm so proud of you. Well, his mom had died a million years ago before, and he he said it very nonchalantly. And I went, Dad, tell me more about that. Then he said to my husband, and well, your father was there. And he came up to me and he said, thank you so much for taking such good care of my son.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at my husband and I said, Dad,
Mm.
share more of this. And that was kind of all he said. And that was the end of that conversation. It was just like, oh my God. And I
Yeah.
said something to my husband. He goes, well, your dad thinks that he saw them, and that's beautiful. But, at that
Yeah.
point, my husband wasn't really buying it. But very supportive, loved my dad and very supportive of what he saw. So
Yeah.
that was, and little things like that. But no,
How about a
no.
grandmother? Any grandparent? Like,
So
I'm
I
just
didn't I
curious.
didn't know my grandparents.
Okay.
I met my mother's mother once. I think she had it, but she came from Russia. I wouldn't have known. Oh, but it just reminded me when I was in college, I had mono and I was in bed for 3 months.
Oh, wow.
And my grandmother was sitting at the side with me,
Yeah.
helping me get better. She was there. And I'm getting chills again. I haven't thought about that, but she was there. So she was probably the grandmother that had that ability.
Oh, that
And I
is very
barely knew
cool.
her.
That is very cool. I feel like, well, I think just in general, we're all intuitive. It's just some
Absolutely.
families
100%.
embrace it more and say, like, well, how does that feel to you? I do that all the time to my kids. It's like, hey, I just
Yeah.
said this, or you have to make a decision. How does it feel to you? Do you want to say yes or no? And they'll be like, no, it doesn't feel right. Then go with that. Because I think it's
Hmm.
important too, as we're bringing up the next generation, get them to trust
Absolutely.
and empower them. Empower them because they need that. I
Yeah.
am curious. I find this super interesting. Within your circle of friends, how
Mm.
was that? Like, do you have medium friends, or were they kind of like, I don't know about Sandy anymore?
At that time, I did not really have mediumship friends, and I had friends, and I've a really close friend I've had forever that I met through TV. He works at the LA Times. Um, And I've just recently, since the podcast, I've opened up tons about that. And he kind of knew because he'd say to me, how do you know this? How did you know this was going to happen? And I just kind of kept it to myself. But no, and what happened was my friends changed.
Yeah,
So I realized there were some people that were in my life that I'm not sure I would really call friends, and we served each other for a while. They were great for a time, but
yeah,
their interests seemed kind of benign to me. And as I got more into this, I needed to have deep conversation. I mean, I want to laugh and I want to be silly and all those, but I needed deeper conversation rather than designer clothes or something like
yeah,
that, which is fine. I that's totally fine, but it's not for me at this point. And
yeah.
so now the friends that I have, oh my God, they're incredible. Like
Yeah.
Marta that came in, and I have a friend Lisa, and we're in a group, and it's just they're incredible people
It is
that
incredible.
and they're grounded. There are a few of them are therapists, um have been trained in science and they're therapists, but they also have metaphysical abilities. So It's, I'm so grateful for my family and for my friends.
Oh, I love that. So I have one last question for you because I
Hmm.
so enjoyed this conversation. So for people that are brand new to this journey and they're feeling the
Mm.
fear, they're feeling the anxiety, and they don't want to be seen and all of that stuff, any words of wisdom or like step one for them to take on their journey that may be listening to this podcast right now and they're feeling that fear?
My step one is, and you've heard it a million times, is get into nature. Go barefoot on grass. And if it's too cold, you can't do that. Put your arms around a tree. Oh, look at, I used to put my arms around the trees and my neighbor would come by and I'd go, and I kind of look up like I'm inspecting the tree. Now I just, and this is science. So the magnetic field of the earth, it's an authentic, it is the most grounded, and it's going to bring you to a place of groundedness. And you
Yeah,
can ask the questions, ask them out loud, ask them, just throw them into the ethers and say, what am I so scared about? Close your eyes, take some really nice deep breaths, and listen to answers. And you're going to say, an answer is going to come through, and you're going to go, oh, I made that up. But you're going to
yeah,
know the difference. And the way I say the difference is when it's an intuitive answer, it whispers through and it's gone. So if I don't write it down right away, or if I don't really focus on it, it's gone. I can't remember it. If
yeah,
it's your ego and judgment, it's going to say something like, oh, no, that can't happen. It's going to have some judgment to it, and that's your ego. Start listening to the whispers of the universe, because your guides want to communicate with you. Your loved
yeah,
ones want to communicate with you, but you have to ask. I've heard this over and over. You have to ask, please help me. And there, it's funny because my guys are, they're kind of nodding their head right now. Um, just ask. And you're going to
yeah,
feel like you're going to feel crazy, and you're going to think you're making it up, and you're going to look around to make sure nobody's looking at you.
yeah.
But you're going to start getting answers, and it is the magic of being human on this planet.
Oh, I agree. I thought that was my last question, but this is the very, very last question. Because I notice for those that are listening, you say guides a lot, my guides, and I feel my guides. So
Yeah.
for people that have no idea, what is she talking about? Can you explain that to us?
Oh, that's such a fantastic question, because I've also asked that, because guides, it's like, it makes me sound like I see things nobody else sees, or only few people see guides. So my guy, they, this consortium introduced themselves to me when I was hiking, and they told me their name, and they started talking to me, and it was information that I absolutely could not have made up myself. There's just no way this information
Yeah,
was in me. So you can say, you can change guides to higher self, I think. You can, if you don't see things or you feel things, or just talk to yourself, and talk to your higher self, because your higher self is there without judgment, without ego, wants, sees your authentic self and wants the very best for you. So I will sometimes, lots of times, I wake up in the morning and go, what does my higher self want me to know today?
yeah.
And that, so I don't know if that answered your question, but I just say my guides because they introduce themselves to me. Um, but I think you can interchange that with a word that resonates with you. And I do think you can use higher self.
Yeah. I love how connected you are with your guides. So I think that's so
Oh,
beautiful to
well,
watch that.
they're funny. One is extremely serious, never shows
Yeah.
his face. Some are really silly and funny, and tease me. They're really fun. We all have them. Everybody has them. And you can just start asking them to come in.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for your time with us. So before we go, is there anything new and upcoming? I know you have a YouTube channel. It is
Mm.
Fear Unzipped. You have a website called fearunzipped.com. You're also on Instagram. So is there anything you want our audience to know that you're up to before we go?
I'm still doing Fear Unzipped, and it seems like every day something new comes in with just interesting challenges, but also opportunities. So I will certainly let people know there's one thing in particular, but it's I'm not ready to really talk about it yet. But yeah, you can reach me at Fear Unzipped anywhere, and feel free to DM me, whatever. And I hope that if you start listening, that it really does, resonate with people, and it helps vaporize your fear a bit. I was the most fearful person. So, yeah, then I ended up jumping out of an airplane and riding a motorcycle and doing the things that I just to try to transmute that fear. So we can all do it. If I can do it, you can do it.
I agree. I agree. Thank you so much for being a guest. And I'm going to have all of her contact information there for everybody. Don't forget to give her a follow. And goodbye, everybody. Have an awesome week.
And I just want to thank you, Maria, for all that you're doing, that you're putting out in the world. It is so important right now. It's so important to bring love and compassion and what I call a warm blanket around people to make them feel safe, because a
Mhm.
lot of us don't feel safe right now, and alleviate fear. So thank you so much for what you're doing. And thank you for having me on. You are just an absolute delight. Delight.
Oh, thank you. So are you, Cindy. I'm so glad
Thank
our
you.
dads brought us together.
Thank you, Dad, and your dad. Thank you.